Okay, I'm laughing because all of you saw just a little bit of that, but I am so excited. Welcome back to another Faith Infused Leadership episode. This is Debbie Heiser, your host, and I am here with just one of my favorite humans in the world. And Katrina and I met each other in 2020 before everything got a little crazy in 2020. And we are in it was a national mastermind at the time that is now an international mastermind of business women. And Katrina and we've been together now a year and a half, and I just adore her. And she does some of the most amazing work. And I'm going to let her describe her professional life. You can see part of it behind her in the screen. But Katrina, introduce yourself from a professional standpoint and tell us what you do in the world.
Wonderful. Hi, Debbie. It's so nice to be here with you today. I like that. How do I say this? I'm a breaker and a maker of things. And basically, what that means is I'm a mosaic artist. So I piece things together. I also do sculptures and mixed media work. But my passion is about the mosaic work, like you see behind me. I also teach classes and workshops and what
What kind
else?
of workshops do you teach?
I was just
What are
like,
those?
there's
Yeah.
a whole world here. So I'm
Yes,
like,
there
where
is. And I
right?
want to touch on two things. I want to find out what workshops you're doing, and then I want you to describe and explain that mosaic behind you.
Okay, yeah. So workshops, I'm doing two different kinds of workshops. One is a creativity workshop that's an exploration of creativity and creative self-expression. And I've combined it with a variety of techniques for calming the fight or flight syndrome.
Mm.
So, we've just been through like a really stressful year for so many people, whether it's like fear of
Yeah.
um, the coronavirus or fear of losing your job, or maybe you've lost your job, or just added stress, trying new things, kids being at home, all kinds of things like that. There's been added stress in our environments, and whether we think that affects us personally or not, as a collective, it has affected us all. And so part of my training and growth, personal growth and development, has been learning different techniques to calm that fight or flight response. So I have long been adding those into my one-on-one classes when I teach classes in person. But since we stopped doing that last year, I'm now incorporating them into online workshops and seeing how that goes, because that's kind of a new thing, right?
Yeah.
Putting that together for me. And then my other classes tend to be mosaic focused. So last year I came up with garden pot pals, which means we were taking just terracotta planters and turning them into new friends. So again,
I love that.
with all the isolation and that sort of thing, I thought, let's make some new friends. And it's been a lot of fun.
That's great. And I know at one point in time, although I haven't seen them in a while, one of my favorite things that you were doing were your paper dolls.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was, so I did paper dolls. Just really, it started because one of my students was going through cancer treatment. And
Mm.
as a class, we all made her paper dolls and sent them to her, so she could have friends around her, right?
Yeah, that's special.
Yeah. And then it just started like growing and developing from there, because we were in the pandemic. And I thought, oh,
Mm.
well, I can send a little person like gift to someone. And each doll had their own personality and their own wardrobe, and it was a lot of fun. And I didn't really have any reason for doing it other than I just wanted to brighten people's days. And it's the paper dolls that actually turned into the garden pot pals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
And
can see that now. Yes.
right. And then those are morphing into the possibility of creating doll like pillows that are like the punch needle. I don't know if you've seen that kind of handcrafted It's a rug technique, but people make pillows and that sort of thing with it.
Oh, nice. Look at you're in a plethora of different things, but it's like to me too, I almost see two things happening with you, Katrina. And one is about this, how do I help other people lower their stress levels and that fight or flight? And it's manifesting itself through the creativity, which, I do a lot of work between mindfulness and heartfulness and bodyfulness. And so that's that tapping into that heart and that childlike heart. And then like you make these beautiful mosaics, and like the one behind you, and I really want you to kind of explain this one a little bit, but what started first and why did you get into mosaics?
Wow. So what started first? So like as a child, I would pick things up and piece them together, or I would
Mm,
take things apart and piece them back together. And so I've done that my whole life. And then my mother taught me how to sew, and I learned how to make patterns. So a lot of almost everything I do involves some type of pattern,
mhm,
right? And just like just this morning, I was thinking, because I'm working on a commission that goes off to Mexico, and I was putting the pieces down. I was like, this reminds me of all those years with my mom's neighborhood friend, Erlene Marshall, who loved to do puzzles, right? And we'd
mhm,
go, and there was always a puzzle out on the table, and we just got to play with the puzzle, right? And that's so the piecing of things, it connects me to other people, it connects me to um, really, gosh, you said we wanted to talk about faith at some point in time.
yeah, yeah.
Like there's a thread there of how that the piecing of things together for me relates to faith. And so we can talk about that a little bit later, but
Oh, but jump right in. Now you've got me
jump
intrigued.
right in.
You've got me intrigued.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing being an artist, right? So I like different media, and somehow or other the piecing of things together has been the thread through it all, right? And as I'm working, there's a process of just really getting quiet. Like often I don't play music very often. I don't ever watch television. Sometimes I'll listen to an audiobook, or sometimes I'll listen to music, but for the most part, I prefer to remain quiet in the studio. And then there's all the noise in my head that I can listen to and see what it is I'm saying to myself and whether that is of service or not. So I get to hold space for that.
Mhm.
And as all of that calms down and I get present to really the gift of being shown what to do, is how it feels. I mean, that's not actually happening in the real world, but that's how it feels. Like I am guided to what I'm creating. There's a trust in that. And so for me,
Mm,
faith equals trust and surrender, right? So there's a part that surrenders to the process. And I could say, for example, like this piece on the wall here, I started this last year in the pandemic. This particular pattern is a bat shape, and it came from a design that I created for a workshop that I was going to do, that didn't get to happen because of the
mm,
pandemic. It was like, and then one day it was like, oh, let's make something circular and let's use this pattern. So it ended up being 5 lucky bats because the 5 bats fit in the circle. I looked it up because I was like, I'm curious, like, what is the symbolism of that, right?
right.
So it turns out in Chinese, what would you call it? Symbolism. The lucky bats represent good fortune in every area of your life, including your death. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I was like, I'm all about the lucky symbols, right?
Yeah.
It's just interesting, right? And then I needed some kind of radial arm coming out to work with the piece, and this Eiffel Tower formed itself. I was like, well, that's curious too, but I love Paris. That'll be fun. The Eiffel Tower in Paris. And it turns out, like, right after I made this, all the stories about bats being like the source of the coronavirus were spurring around, floating around in the media and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, that's interesting too. And
Had
then
some foresight.
I don't know, right? And then I added the chrysanthemum in the middle, which is also about blessings for the home. And I thought, well, it's just kind of interesting, the mix of what was happening out in the world came through symbolically through this piece, although I had no idea what the Eiffel Tower related to, except that now in our mastermind group, there's a possible trip to Paris. So
very true. Well, and I have to tell you, it's interesting, Katrina, because I've seen this with you on numerous calls that we've been on, but I just now took my glasses off, and because I kind of like to look at things without like the super fine detail at first. And I actually, the bats, if they're turned upside down, almost look like women in dresses.
oh, interesting.
And I also see a heart in the red ones.
Mm-hmm.
But if you like it, if you turn them upside down, they look like these beautiful, like Parisian gowns that they have on. So I think Paris is calling your name. Well, and I want to go back to when you talk about the workshops, because I know this part of it is fairly new for you, and you really are a leader in your industry. And what you do is really unique. And as a leader, it's important that we're vulnerable, that we're humble, that we allow this creative thinking to happen. Right now the term is design thinking, that we're creative and innovative about how we're approaching things. And I look at that as a really nice parallel to what you do. And so as you're as you're jumping into this new avenue of, well, I call it new, but newer to you, of working with people to heal, really, and look at stress with the fight or flight and how art and creativity can help with that. How do you see yourself as a leader with
How
that?
I see myself as a leader, really? So as a leader, I would say I don't see myself as separate, because that can be tricky, right? And I've certainly had enough of that experience myself, whether experiencing it from someone else or just from my own misunderstanding of being human, right? Where I can be, I can have a tendency to be righteous and judgmental and think that I have all the answers, which is just it's part of being human, but it doesn't serve very well. And I have a real commitment to serving, like you said, through the heart, for yourself. It's very much the same for me. I find that I really, really love people, like all kinds of people. And even when I think I don't like someone, most often I do like them, right? There's something there, right? And so
there's something beautifully messy about loving people, isn't there?
Yeah, totally. Like it's definitely messy. It's a lot like artwork.
Yeah, it's putting the pieces together, right? Oh, I love that. So Katrina, what do you see? You're working on workshops. I know you're working on some vision board things that I know we don't have to share, but be on the lookout because I'm super excited about those. And it's just so exciting to see you do all of these things and incorporate the creativity that you have. And Like, I look at the past experiences that you have and the experiences as you go forward, and you inspire me um, to serve and be humble and be a better version of myself. So I want to thank you publicly. But so here's the question I would have for you. If someone wanted to find out more about the workshops that you do, because with them being virtually, you can do those from pretty much anywhere in the globe as long as you have internet. If someone wanted to look at some of the work that you've done and potentially even commission a work, where would they go to find out about you?
My website is called theworldofdoranstudio.com. You can also find me at katrinadoran.com or doranstudiomosaics.com. So all three of those things take you to the same
Okay,
website. And I list my workshops and classes on that website. And
perfect.
then there's a way to email me from the website if you're interested in
Okay.
commissioning the work. You'll see samples of the works. Currently, I don't have like a buy it now type of setup on the website, but we're
But they could
considering.
contact you.
Yeah, they can
Okay.
contact me. And also on like social media, like Instagram and Facebook. Uh, it's a quicker way for me to load like in progress
Oh,
pictures
sure.
I'm working on. So that's kind of a fun way to follow along. And that is on Instagram, it's at Katrina underscore Doran underscore mosaics.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I'll send those to you for links.
That would be perfect. And we'll put them in the description so that those of you that are listening or watching can find those as well. And I want to kind of finish up our time because one of the things that Katrina and I spoke a little bit about before we hopped onto the podcast was, and what I feel like is kind of your heart's mission. You said that you really are wanting to help people rediscover the awe and wonder of the world. And I know you do that for me. And I know I've seen you do that for other people. And so I just think the work you're doing is pretty special in the world and making an impact. And people are being impacted. You know, I think about all of the different ways you've connected art to connecting with people. And that's really what it's about. So I want to thank you for spending some time with me. And for those of you that would like to figure out and find out more about working with me, you can go to www, it's all spelled out, 3V as in Victor, consulting.com. And you can also follow me at Debbie Heiser on Facebook or Instagram as well. Look forward to seeing you again soon. And Katrina, thank you again so much for taking time out of your studio day to have a chat with me. I appreciate it.
Debbie, I loved it. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk to everybody in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much.